But you ought to ask Jesus if that's true. And stop believing your own experience and making your own experience Lord. You probably ought to ask Jesus if there's another way to respond called the. Are you hearing me? I'm not being cynical. It's just amazing how we can analytically talk ourselves around truth and believe we're right. When our analytical assessment isn't producing life, it's actually giving us permission to stay wherever we are and find a reason to be there when it's not him. If he did that in that situation, nobody would have noticed anything. When they find out later, they're like, what? Well, you were going through that? How come? Why couldn't you even tell? What? And then he gets to explain why and where he lives from, and now it's a conviction to all that hear. You get it? It's pretty cool. So we think compelled to just tell everybody about Jesus. Why don't you just show everybody about Jesus? Because if you're telling them and they can't see what you're saying in you, why would they want what you're saying? Now you just have a theory. But if you show them, you can't really get around that. And now they see your life. They see your work habits for the last 2 years. They see your attitude. They see the way you handle adversity and even unfairness on your job. And they realize, man, this lady don't even complain. She acts like they ain't even. And I'm thinking she's a pushover and passive, but there's something deeper than that and more attractive about the way they respond. Next thing you know, 2 years might go by and you don't even think you're doing anything, but you're showing them Christ. And 2 years in, they ask you, what's up with you? And then you get to tell them. And it's amazing when you're living that way, how it's not hard to explain because you're not trying to preach to them. You're just sharing the truth of what you believe. It's so easy to answer those questions. Well, how do you live like that? Well, how could you? Well, why could you? You don't have to be a preacher. You just share truth. And I'm telling you, it convicts people. Why? Because we're out of darkness into light. And all of a sudden, they're getting a glimpse of what light looks like. All of a sudden, they're seeing the power that runs through the wire that flips the light on. All of a sudden, they're seeing what's responsible for the light. And all of a sudden, it realigns their thinking. It gives them a conviction they never had. Now they have a voice called Holy Spirit in their life that they didn't hear before like they're hearing now. Why? Because now they have an option. Because they thought this was normal, but they met you. And when they met you, they met him. Because the Christ in you is the hope of glory. And all of a sudden, you're evangelizing and didn't even know you were an evangelist. You think it's preaching on a street corner. I call it walking in love and living by the Spirit.